What's up, Raider Nation? The Raiders have a chance to beat a team that's just as bad as them, and they'll have a rookie quarterback in Shedeur Sanders that will be starting. Can the Raiders get it done against the Browns? We'll be diving into that on today's episode.
Good morning, Raider Nation. Look, Cleveland Browns are coming to town. The dog pound is going to be in the house. Let's see if the Raiders are up for the challenge. And look, I think this all defensive line for the Raiders, including Max Crosby, can get to this quarterback because there are plenty of miscommunication steps, much like our offensive line that Cleveland shares. We'll talk about it next.
Raider Nation, we've seen this story before. A time that the Raiders should get a win. They have an advantage, and they don't. Will this play out differently on Sunday? We'll talk about it.
Raider Nation, it's time. This is the Raiders Squad. Everything Las Vegas Raiders every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Death Star in the desert. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Commitment to excellence starts here. The Raiders Squad Show starts now.
Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? Remember, if you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media channels. You'll see in the description below the ways that you can connect with us. And we do want to say thank you so much for making the Locked On Network the #1 sports podcasting network. We do appreciate you. And also, we do appreciate you for joining us this morning on Thursday and helping this channel grow. Obviously, if you've already subscribed, we do appreciate you. But once again, we appreciate you making Locked On Raiders or the Locked On Raiders Squad Show your first listen of the day. You can also find us on the audio side. So wherever you find your shows, podcasts, we're there too. So if you got a couple of minutes, leave a rate and review. That always helps the channel grow as well. And coming up on the show in the final segment, Q and Link are going to be taking some of your questions and comments. So drop them into the chat. Let us know, do you think the Raiders can get it done against the Browns on Sunday? Also, we're going to talk about a player or maybe a coach that needs to do something in this game. We're bringing that segment back. We're also obviously going to take a deep dive into the Raiders and Broncos, the takeaways from last game that might affect this game, but also just the keys to victory, the guys' X factor. And of course, we'll be doing our predictions as well. Before we get into everything though, today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Link Q, the Raiders right now not looking too good. The Browns don't look that good either, but there was some news that came out yesterday, and the Raiders made some moves to the roster. They activated Aidan O'Connell and they waived Chris Smith. They released Leroy Watson, and those were some of the moves that they made, and this activates Aidan O'Connell. So just in terms of your guys' thoughts, you guys thought this would happen anyways, predicted it, but it also kind of tells a little bit of a story of how, I guess, how much confidence the Raiders have in a guy like Kenny Pickett, in my opinion. Q, I will go with you first. What were your thoughts on this move?
Yeah, I mean, it was something that we kind of all expected was going to happen, but when they made it official, to your point, it kind of tells you what they think about Kenny Pickett. You know, Pete Carroll, we met with him on Tuesday following the loss to the Cowboys, and he said that, you know, they had to make a decision on Aiden O'Connell this week because that 21-day window was open. If they didn't activate him, he was going to be out for the season. And he said, well, he's been practicing against the ones. And so we all kind of in the media room looked around. Was like, he's practicing with the runs, and you know, and it's not the runs, but the ones. And it's funny that you know, we talk about practice and who he's going up against, because look, there's a guy in Shedeur Sanders who we've heard nothing but conversations about how much he's not getting any reps with ones or against the ones in Cleveland. But then you're hearing that the backup quarterback or even third string quarterback at the time, the guy who's not even on the 53-man roster, actually was getting a little bit of burn against the ones there in practice. So it lets you know that, you know, they do have some confidence in Aiden. And if worst case scenario, they decide that they have to make a move from Geno Smith, my opinion only, Aiden O'Connell would be the guy they make the nod to and turn the ball over to, as opposed to Kenny Pickett.
You know, the amount of criticism that both these teams have received throughout this season because they've been playing poorly is off the charts. So if I'm the Raiders, I welcome it. Yes, talk about the other team. Talk about the other team's quarterback. Talk about Cleveland's quarterback, Shedeur Sanders. Come in the locker room, ask me a question about that rather than ask me a question about what's going on around me. Because really, if I look at some of the Raider players, I know that they don't have any answers, immediate answers, what's going on and why this season has become somewhat disastrous. But to answer your question, Chantel, about the AOC, was a surprise. I figured it was going to happen. I know that they believe, for the most part, there are a lot of coaches that believe more in Aiden O'Connell than Kenny Pickett. I've sensed that from just the nomenclature and everything that's been going on around the locker room that I've seen. And I haven't had as much experience around them as Q has, for example. It's just been very limited, but it's just the feel that I get from sensing watching things go. Yep. With that being said, guys, it's one of those things where if Aiden O'Connell is going to be your number 2 or is going to get back into your number 2, the big thing is you've got to get it doesn't matter who's quarterback. You got to get this offensive line situation figured out. I'll continue to harp on that because when I've been watching film over the last couple of weeks, there have been so many errors, so many blocking errors, so many assignment errors. I can't wrap my head. These are professionals. How are you still making the same stupid ass mistake that you made 2 weeks ago and it didn't go for any yards of that when it's talking about the run game and everything else? I say that in frustration. So let me dial back a little bit before I get too away from you.
Yeah, exactly. Early big fella.
Yeah, very true, very true. I already had my caffeine and my Earl Grey tea this morning, so I'm on one. But with that being said, AOC activated. I don't know if he gets any play. I don't know if he gets any shine in worst case scenario. But Geno Smith is beat up. He will continue to get beat up if they don't figure out these offensive line. Aiden O'Connell might be playing sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and you said AOC will probably get beat up behind this O-line. And I think that's probably the biggest storyline because I was kind of hype in just knowing that somebody else was going to be competing against Geno Smith because in terms of Kenny Pickett, I just believe that there's not a lot of confidence that they have in Kenny Pickett. Now, AOC, we've kind of seen, I think we know what he is at this point. Let's say that. Sure. But do you guys believe that there is a chance that we might see him maybe even in this game if Geno has a terrible first half and against this Cleveland D-line, against this O-line, this might actually happen, Q?
I honestly don't. As much as that's not going to give hope to a lot of Raider Nation that wants to see someone that's not Geno Smith, I don't think, especially Coach Carroll, just listening to what he says and the way he talks about Geno and the way that he's performed so far this season, I don't think that he's being as critical on Geno as a lot of us are. And, to Lincoln's point, who would be good behind this offensive line? I mean, quarterback Jesus wouldn't be good behind, this offensive line at this stage of the game. I mean, he doesn't have any real opportunity to even allow a play to develop. I mean, and it just seems like, if they sit him down, it's because, well, he's just so skittish and so guarded in the pocket that he's not he can't really orchestrate the offense the way it's supposed to go. But to that point, I don't think Aiden O'Connell or Kenny Pickett would do much better. I mean, it's one of those things, like I said, hearing Coach Carroll talk all the time as I do, it doesn't seem like he's holding Geno as accountable for the failures as a lot of us are holding him for the failures.
And look, it's rightfully deserved. Look, in the sense that Geno has notoriously throughout his career forced the ball into tight windows. More times than not, it has been turnovers. There have been criticisms, and of course, there have been praise because of his accuracy and his ability as a quarterback. That there are a lot of people that still believe in him, and minus the turnovers. And I think a lot of the Raider Nation wants to believe in him, but at the same point, the frustrations are mounting. I mean, they've been mounting, and they're going to continue to mount. If you can't throw past 5 yards, 6, 7 yards to get downfield, but it's not his fault all entirely. The fact is you don't have protection. I think when we've seen clean pockets, no matter where they are, whether they're play action or rollout or something like that, when we've seen clean pockets, we've seen good things happen. But it hasn't been a lot of times where there's been clean pockets. So it is what it is. So I go back to my original statement. I don't care who you put back there. You're not going to make anything if that if that offensive line doesn't take care of business.
I think Pete Carroll does believe that Geno Smith is the best option. I think both of you believe that as well over Aiden O'Connell and Kenny Pickett. My only question to both of you is, at this point of the season, the Raiders aren't going to the playoffs. They're not a contender. Oh. So how do you really assess the players on your team if they're not seeing the field? For example, we know what AOC is like already, but some people want to see him behind this O-line, even though they're terrible. But some people want to see him play
the best chance
with this team at QB1. Exactly. Or even Kenny Pickett or even Cam Miller. But if these quarterbacks are not seeing the field, how can you assess that moving forward towards the future? Link?
You can't. To be honest, you can't. Look, I've held by my original belief in watching Aiden O'Connell back in college and watching him the first couple years in the league, that I do believe he has potential to compete on a National Football League level. I think he can be a good quarterback in this league. There are things that you have to do, but you have to remember the biggest knock on him is that he's not mobile. And believe me, when he tries to be mobile, it's painful for my old ass to watch him run. So, he's a stationary quarterback. You have to create a system that implements that. And that's not something you start overnight. But to answer your question, I think I kind of get to your point. When do you make the change? I think it might happen sometime this game. If it doesn't go well, I think if the first half doesn't go well, you could probably see Aiden O'Connell come in, because I know doggone well there are coaching staff and there are people in that organization that want to see him behind what is the number one offensive line to see what he can do. Right?
I feel 100% with you on that. I just don't think it's going to happen. And really, the only reason I say I don't think it's going to happen is because I'm looking at the big picture. And Shedeur, when you ask, how can you see what you have? How could you see what you have in your third-round pick offensive lineman? How could you see what you have in your second-round pick and your fourth-round pick wide receivers? How could you see what you have in some of your young defensive linemen if they're not seeing the field consistently at this stage of the game when, again, they're 2-8? I mean, look, this has been, a subject we talked about a lot throughout the course of the week ever since Monday's game. Jack Bech saw 9 snaps offensively. Second-round pick wide receiver. First target, only target of the game, goes for 19 yards, right? Then I know that he's in a different personnel group, and they win a lot at 12 and 13 personnel, which has multiple tight ends on the field, so I get that. But there's no reason Tyler Lockett got 28 snaps and Jack Bech only got 9. How are you going to tell me what you have in Jack Bech if Tyler Lockett gets 28 offensive snaps and Jack Bech gets 9? Like that doesn't make sense. Make the math make sense to that. And to me, it doesn't, because, again, you don't know what you have. Now, maybe they're going to flood the last month of the season, the last 4 games of the season, and you're going to see nothing but the young dudes. Maybe that's what's going to happen. But until Pete Carroll is comfortable with saying, okay, not waving the white flag, but I give and I get it. All right, we're going to go ahead and run with the young guys, and see what they have. I don't think we're going to see any of those guys anytime soon. And from the sounds of what Pete's saying, he's not ready to do that yet.
And I think it's almost a detriment to the future and understanding the future to some degree. But to your point, Q, I think, and we talked about this yesterday on your show, it's also about personnel grouping when it comes to Jack Bech and Tyler Lockett.
Yep.
You got who's going to come off the field? Are you going to take Trey Tucker off the field when he's supposed to be your speed burner? Or if you're going to put Dante Thornton Jr. on the field and he's supposed to be your speed burner to stretch the field? Tyler Lockett used to have that, that title back in Seattle.
Yeah.
And now there's a little bit, from the routes that I've seen, it's a little bit different. They're not necessarily doing them like that. They're actually doing them more of as a number one receiver, and which I scratch my head over and ponder the future of that as well. But, look, coaches coach, players play. So much to the personnel grouping, when you're trying to keep all your big playmakers on the field to get other possible playmakers to get some shine, there's just not enough room. They've got to figure this out. If they want to go with 12 personnel, it's 2 tight ends, it's 2 wide receivers. You've got to have one that's going to take the roof off the top, and the other one's going to be deemed a possession receiver or a number one. I can see Jack Bech filling in that area. But for the most part, right now they're giving that assignment to Tyler Lockett because of the chemistry between Lockett and Smith.
There's no team on the NFL other than the Raiders where I think Tyler Lockett would be wide receiver number 1. He shouldn't even be wide receiver number 1 on the Raiders. At this point, you would want to give some of the young guys burn, and it's just not happening. And that also brings me to the post-game press conference. And we mentioned this on the last episode. Q, you were there. So were you, Link. But Pete Carroll also was asked, what is it going to take? This I'm paraphrasing right now, but for the young players to get more of an opportunity. And Pete said, and I'm paraphrasing, we're trying to win. So you guys want us to do that. And you're talking about that. Media's talking about that, but we're trying to win. But the Raiders are 2-8. And I understand you're trying to win, but I think it's probably more important to let the young players see the field. You talked about Jack Bech and his expectations coming into the season. He's a high draft pick for the Raiders. You would expect him to be more involved. Do you think he gets more involved in this game just based off what Pete has been saying about him, Q?
Unfortunately, no. I don't think, like I said, I don't think Coach Carroll is ready to do that just yet, and he's talking about we're only asking about these certain guys because they're draft picks. Right. Sure. That's absolutely true. Those are facts. But I think they're very valid, questions. And I think that they're not doing a justice to this team to not be out there playing at this stage of the game. Because again, when you draft a guy in the top 100 and that's the first 3 rounds, you're expecting to get some kind of burn out of him. Right now, if you get a quarterback and he's going to sit for a year or something, okay, that's one thing. But if you get a running back, you get a wide receiver, and you get a couple offensive linemen in the top 100, you expect those guys to make some kind of plays, some kind of production for you in their rookie year, and they're just not getting that. And that is what the problem is. And, going back to even Caleb Rogers being a healthy scratch on Monday, it just blew my mind that you're going to bring up a guy from the practice squad and put him on the active 53-man roster when you have a dude who's been ready. He worked a lot in college. It's not like this is some guy that didn't get burned in college. I mean, Caleb Rogers, you go back and look, he's like a super senior there in college. So he had plenty of experience. And yeah, I know the NFL is a different ball game, but how do you know what you have in one of the positions that's most important, critical to your team, and obviously one of the biggest failures of your team if they're not getting play? And that leads me back to the conversation I've been having for weeks, maybe even months now, that everyone is not on the same page. The idea of the GM and the head coach, probably the offensive coordinator, they're not all sharing the same ideas. They're not on the same Google Doc, right? I mean, one's philosophy is one thing, another philosophy is another thing, and it's not meshing right now. And that's why you're looking at a team that's 2-8, and you've got a Tyler Lockett being your number 1 wide receiver, when at this stage of the game, you rather have Dante Thornton Jr. out there. You rather have Jack Best out there. Even if they make mistakes, at least they're learning, and you can see, okay, this is what this guy does well, and this is where he needs to continue to work.
And that's where my logic stems from, Q and Chantel, is the fact that this game, when you look at this game and the remaining, 6 games after that, you go the Chargers, the Broncos, the Eagles, the Texans, who are struggling, but still a good defense, a good football team. The New York Giants, still a good defense, and depending on what Jackson Dart comes back, might be, a capable opponent. Well, they're definitely a capable opponent, but you know what I mean. And then Kansas City, the end of the year. This is why I think these young guys in AOC should get some burn. You're going to be against the Cleveland Browns. Now, I know what I sense that Pete Carroll's philosophy is. Look, I get a win, then we've got a little bit of cushion, to wiggle room to make these moves and make it right. If I can just get a win to stop the bleeding, stop the criticism, stop everybody calling for, the set of fire to the Raiders, everyone to cast the blame and cast coaches aside. If we get a win, then maybe we can make some of those decisions in the final 6 games. The only problem with that is that you're talking about the final 6 games have notable defenses.
Yeah.
And you're talking about playing a lot of these young offensive players against notable defenses. Doesn't necessarily equate a formula for success. You know what I mean? In the final 7 games. That's why I think Cleveland is a team that struggles on both sides of the ball, just as the Raiders have often. If they can get something positive maybe in the first half, then the second half you see a lot of these guys play, and because you're trusting your defense to hold on to the win. That's my logic.
Man, I'll tell you, they got this dude. He wears number 95. He is going to be a menace to society on Sunday, man. He is going to be a problem. He's offensive line, buckle up. I hope they get a good night's sleep the night before. I hope they eat their Wheaties. I hope they do whatever they've got to do, because they are going to put a full day's work in when Myles Garrett comes to town, who's had 10 sacks, 10 of them in the last 3 games. 10 in the last 3 games.
Yeah, and speaking of the Cleveland Browns, in terms of their injury report, Myles Garrett, he did not participate on Wednesday, but he was just resting. So no luck there, Raiders fans. He was just resting, along with Denzel Ward. He was resting as well. But a couple of names to keep an eye on. Tackle Jack Conklin, he's dealing with a knee injury. He was limited. And also Cam Robinson, he's dealing with a knee injury. He was limited. As for the Raiders, pretty slim there on the injury report. Jonah Laulu, he's dealing with a rib injury. He was limited. But coming up on the other side, we're going to do a full breakdown of the Raiders and Browns. We're going to let you know keys to victory, X Factor, and our predictions as well. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're listening or watching the Raiders Squad Show. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePick is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates. That includes Cali, Texas, and Georgia. The thing I love about PrizePicks is it's extremely easy to use in terms of even depositing your money. Once you pretty much put in all of your information in terms of banking, or you can use PayPal. There's so many different options you can use on PrizePicks, not like other sports betting apps. So that's why it makes it extremely easy. And you can obviously put cap limits on that as well. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Welcome back, Raider Nation. Remember, if you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And we also want to thank you for making the Locked On Network the #1 sports podcasting network. And of course, we also do appreciate you helping this channel grow. So whether Locked On Raiders or the Squad Show is your first or second listen of the day, we do appreciate you. All right, we got to get into the Raiders and Browns, 2 struggling teams, 2 fan bases that have been struggling as well. The Dog Pound will be in the building. They'll travel well. But this is a game where there's a lot on the line for both sides. Now, we're going to get into the big story on the Brown side, but we got to focus on the silver and black to start off. Now, Geno Smith is going to be QB1. We know that. The issue here is we've talked ad nauseum about the O-line, but every game is won in the trenches in terms of football. Sir. It's won in the trenches. So my question to you, Link, is what are your keys to victory in this game for the Raiders to get the W against the Browns?
More detail to assignments. I'm going back to my original point when we started the show. There have been busted mental errors throughout the season. Last game on Monday night, they seem to be exaggerated to some degree. I don't know if the guys went out there purposely said, I'm going to block the wrong guy or I'm going to go the wrong way. But it damn sure seemed like it when I reviewed the film. Like, some of the things that they were doing, like that doesn't even make sense. Why would you go there of all places? But with that being said, it's attention to detail. If this team's going to get better and win a game against a bad team like they did in Tennessee, obviously certain things are going to have to fall their way. We know the offense has had its troubles, it's struggling. We know where the defense is at, but we've also seen the defense get worn out. Special teams, we don't know really what to make of them because there's been a coaching change, and so there's still an evaluation period, especially when it comes to live ball, how much of a factor they're going to be in. But all in all, this offense needs to score touchdowns. Yep. And for that to happen, this offensive line has got to do a damn better job than it's done. And for all that happening, it's comes coaching today, tomorrow, the last day that you can really prepare for the Cleveland Browns. You've got to get everything straight. You got to make sure these guys are razor sharp and ready to go, and they know what they're supposed to do on any given play that they have in their arsenal and projected arsenal script plays. We've seen this team have success with scripted plays. Start of the game, come out of the half, we've seen them. It's been limited, but we've seen somewhat success. The big thing is when they get in the red zone, they got to score touchdowns. Yep. If you want to build confidence as an offense, got to score touchdowns. So you got to rely on everybody doing and executing their job right. The key to victory is very simple. Offensive line's got to block a hell of a lot better.
And look, Chantel, the one thing I know is that in class, when the professor talks, you're supposed to listen. You're supposed to take notes. I got my notepad right here.
Oh, no.
So Mr. Kennedy speaks. He says assignment, alignment, technique, and execution. Those are
principles of play.
Those are his 4 principles right there. That's what the offensive line needs to get back to. Those 4 principles, they need to make sure they have mastered. And then they can hope that the offense can get cooking. Look, the defense of Cleveland is nothing to shake a stick at. These dudes could play, right? This defense, the offense ain't worth the salt, right? To be nice about it. Their offense is a struggle bus. We'll see what happens with the change at the QB spot. But their defense is nice. They could play. They're going to make life miserable on the Raiders. And the Raiders offensively clearly are on the struggle bus, but it starts up front. Again, it sounds like we're beating a dead horse, but that's what it is. It starts up front. Everything is built off that. Can the run game get going? Yeah, if the offensive line's blocking. Can the passing game work? Yep, if the offensive line's blocking. Like, we talked about it before the season started. We can have all the bells and whistles, no matter what you got on any team in America. It doesn't matter what team we're talking about. All the bells and whistles can be there, but if you don't have a front that's going to be able to block, you're in trouble. And that has, unfortunately for the Raiders, come back to rear its ugly head, right? And that's what it is. And now they've got backups on top of backups on top of backups in the lineup. I mean, you're looking at Stone Forsythe, you're looking at Will Putnam, you're looking at Meredith, no longer at center, even though he's the best decision at center. At least that's what I've been told. Now he's at guard, right? I mean, there's nothing but backups all over this offensive line. And you've got a dude like Myles Garrett coming to town. You just saw the Cowboys, who their defenses can't get right, and their defense looked dominant on Monday. And now all of a sudden you've got a defense that is good, led by a guy that's got 10 sacks in the last 3 games. Link, there's been games back in the day in the history of the Raiders where you just see an edge rusher dominate the game, right?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
go back to and rest in peace to Derek Thomas of the Chiefs. You want to go that far back? How many sacks did he have in that game? 6?
Oh, don't
right?
remind me.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is one of these things that's setting up. If the Raiders don't do something with that offensive line, and if they don't set those 4 principles and master them, this could end up being one of those big time performances by an edge rusher that all of a sudden they're getting Defensive Player of the Week award by the NFL. And I don't want to see that happen on Sunday at Allegiant Stadium.
I don't want to see the dog pound go off in the Legion Stadium. I mean, I don't want to see
they're
that.
going to be there, brother.
Hell yeah. No
I
doubt.
can tell you off top, I do a show with Emmett Golden from ESPN Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
They arrive in town on Friday on chartered flights.
Oh, yeah.
They are bringing their listeners, and they do it every time they come here, to Vegas. They have sold out a plane. They've sold out a whole tailgate section at Allegiant. Like, they are going to be represented in a major way at the stadium.
I mean, I don't expect anything less from the Browns fans because they're just as passionate as Raiders fans. And despite the losing culture that both fan bases have experienced, they show up. But they have something to be excited about in terms of their rookie quarterback. I feel like it's a little bit of excitement because it's new. They're going to see what Shedeur Sanders has. He's also going to be facing this Raiders defense. What does this Raiders defense have to do to make it tough on a young rookie quarterback like Shedeur Sanders, who we saw against the Ravens just struggle, but he's getting those first team reps. He's getting a full practice. He should be prepared. He did not look prepared in that first game when he had to come in. Maybe that's a little bit is on the coaches there. But what does this Raiders defense have to do to make it hard on a guy like Shedeur Sanders, Link?
Well, they've got to harass him early and often. There's no doubt about it. And here, the Cleveland Browns offense, Stefanski was going to come out there, and they're going to try to establish the run because that's the quarterback's best friend. And when he came in the situation, Shedeur, I'm speaking of, when he came into the game last week, he came into the game obviously out of necessity to the injuries of the quarterbacks in front of him, but more importantly, they had an opportunity to try to win the game. So they really opened up the offense and really was trying to throw it down the field. Didn't get a whole lot of protection, was under some constant harassment. Because of the injuries to the Browns offensive line, they struggled with the blitz pickup and protecting Shedeur overall. That has to continue. But more importantly, look, just like the Raiders are going to have a conscious effort to fire where Myles Garrett, number 95, is on the field, and they're going to throw 2-3 bodies at him on any given play, you're going to do the same thing to Max Crosby. The Browns are going to do the same thing to Max Crosby, much like the Cowboys did in the second half of the game after Max had that strip sack. They played particularly attention to him. They were trapping him with tackles and guards and linemen coming across him on play action, and they had enough time to stymie Max and sort of prevent him from getting the backfield. That's what teams are making a conscious effort. We got to have somebody else stand up and be counted. Whether it's Malcolm Kuntz, whether it's Tyree Wilson, Q, stuff like that. Someone else is going to have to rise up. I still don't think Patrick Graham, in my opinion, has the ability to really throw a real hard blitz package at this team because you leave exposed on the outside. If a play gets off, it could be a big play. But I'm hoping the Raiders play more aggressive than passive. Right.
I agree 100%. I also think that they just need to do everything they can to confuse Shedeur on what he's seen. Right. I mean, this is all new for him. Right. I mean, he's obviously getting first team reps, but that's still really quickly into week 12 of the NFL season. All of a sudden, now you're starting to get some first team reps. This is all going to be a learning curve for him. What the Raiders can't do defensively is allow him to get comfortable. If they allow him to get comfortable and start throwing the ball around the yard, look, the one thing I know is the dude could throw the ball. And he's going to try to stretch the field where they didn't have really a vertical passing attack with Dylan Gabriel in there. They had somewhat of one with Joe Flacco in there, but they didn't have that with Dylan Gabriel. He is going to test the corners, and he's going to test them deep if given the time. So that goes back to Lincoln's point where Max Crosby is going to have to wreck this game. Just like Myles Garrett is going to be expected to wreck the game for the Browns, 98 is going to be expected to wreck the game for the Raiders. And other guys have to step up. Tyree has to come to the front of the congregation. Malcolm Kuntz, where have you been, right? I mean, 1 sack. You've got to step up and make your presence felt. Now you're in week 12. Let's go. Something's got to give. Adam Butler, right? We know what Adam Butler brings to the table. Going to need to see his presence. I know Jonah Laulu was limited with the rib injury, but going to have to see him out there. Like, they are going to have to throw everything at this young man and make him as confused as possible and not allow him to get comfortable. If he gets comfortable and he starts throwing that rollie in the air, all of a sudden he's going to think like, hey, I'm back in Colorado. This is no problem. I got this. And confidence is a mother. Right? Confidence is something. When you go out there and you play with confidence, there's not a lot that you can't do. So they've got to make him confused and they've got to make him uncomfortable.
When you're a vet in a locker room like this, and I've had instances in my career where I've seen it, the biggest question that I had as a player walking in the locker room is that who's still really here?
Yep.
Who's still really into it? Every individual is different. You talk about Malcolm Kuntz, this might be a prove-it year or a contract year for him in his future, like Tyree Wilson. And it might very well be. I mean, but the circumstance plays different for everyone. There are times I've looked at guys that didn't want to come to work. You don't want to be here. And I'd be the first one to say, you should go home, man. You don't want to be here. And, man, I got to get a check. This is why I got, whatever your reason is. I mean, each one's different. I'm not trying to come in between anybody and their money. But I can see it in some guys' eyes, don't want to be there. Sometimes that translates to play. Sometimes that translates to guys just going through the motion. And we're talking about the Cleveland Browns. I remember years ago when they had the last week of the season was their bye. They hadn't won a football game. And I sat in the locker room questioning, scratching my head. Why the hell would I come to work? You know what I mean? We haven't won a game. We're not going to win a game. Why would I? And this is the last game of the season. Why would I come to work? The season's over. And because the Raiders are sort of at that precipice right now, you have to question a lot of people. And look, I tip my hat to Pete Carroll because he is a motivator. I feel motivated when I hear him speak sometimes. Oh, man, we got to get the best team in the field. All the stuff that he says. Yeah, let's go. Hasn't translated into wins. So where does your confidence go?
Right.
You know, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm stemming. So these two teams, you have two teams that are bad coming in to play one another. Somebody's got to win, right? Somebody's got to win. Right. It might be ugly, but somebody's got to win. The last thing I would want for this team, this organization, to see another obscure quarterback come in, not getting any burn, and next thing you know, he lights up the team.
Boom. I'm
tired of the bereavement play.
Yes.
I played too many games of bereavement play. Last Monday night was a bereavement play game. Yep. All of a sudden, let's give the credit to the Cowboys because they came in after the loss of their player. Play football. This is football. Yep. You take all extracurriculars off the field. Play football. Go out there and show that you're a professional. Show that you deserve to be here and show that you should be honored to wear the uniform. Show some pride. If nothing else, show some pride in yourself. You know, that's why I shared with Q my principles of play yesterday, because these are things that I had on my locker. I had on my in my person, on my notebook, everything else. My principles of play, because this is what I did. I was a professional, and I'm challenging those guys out there to be a professional.
There they are. There they are.
Professor Kennedy giving us our keys to victory. Yeah, Link, you also mentioned the blitz, and an interesting stat for Shedeur was that he was 0 for 6 against the blitz against the Ravens, and
that's why I think he's going to light it up. Yeah, I think he's going to light it up. But you got to get home. You got to get there. Okay, the secondary has struggled with man-on-man. They struggled in spaces, especially in the middle of the field. Long intermediate routes in the middle of the field had struggled because there hasn't been the ultimate communication with safeties. Safety play has been inconsistent at times. So you really got to make sure if you're going to blitz, damn sure got to get there quickly.
Man, you don't want to be on the wrong end of this story, Chantel. And the Raiders, unfortunately, as an organization, have been on the wrong side of these type stories way too many times. May I remind you, Jeff Saturday, ESPN guy, never coached a game in the NFL. Only thing he ever coached was high school football. Came out of the booth, right? Put the headset down, coached the Colts to a victory versus the Raiders. May I introduce you to Baker Mayfield? Only been in LA for 2 days. Led the Rams on Thursday Night Football to a victory. May I introduce you to some guy named Nick Mullins? You've never heard of him. He's a third-string quarterback. He's never really done anything. Lit up the silver and black for 300 and something yards on a Thursday night game where I was screaming that Paul Gunther needed to walk his tail back to Alameda and not even get back on the bus. Like, the Raiders have been on the wrong side of these stories. Ryan Fitzpatrick, hey, the Raiders are beating up on the Dolphins. All of a sudden, this guy named Ryan Fitzpatrick, a career journeyman, comes into the game, leads them to victory, right? I mean, there's so many times that the Raiders have been on the wrong side of this story. Shedeur Sanders, in principle, should not go into Allegiant Stadium and light up the Raiders. I say should in all caps, right? Should not. But that doesn't mean he's not going to, because, again, the Raiders have been on the wrong side of these stories way too many times. And I really hope that this is not the case come Sunday.
And you know that the frenzy is going to be around Shedeur Sanders as well. Prime is going to be in the building. It's going to be crazy, but let's see if Shedeur Sanders can live up to the hype and he gets an opportunity. And personally, as a football fan, I am kind of rooting for him to have a successful game, but also I'm looking ahead to the draft. I'm just going to be real, right? Because you're also fighting for draft position. So do you want to win? I don't know. I'm just playing about that. But
no. Valid point.
Yeah.
Sis, valid point. Look, this is the precipice of what the Raider fans have to endure. The fact is do you want to win? Do you really want to win and take yourself out like we did last year? All of a sudden, you knock yourself out possibly from the 1 or 2 position to possibly 5, 6. You know, and especially when you talk about as much premium help as this team needs. Do you really want to win? So, you know, be careful. Careful what you ask for. You know what I mean? I want him to win because I think it breeds success. But at the same point, as a player, I can never tank for the future.
Yeah.
I can never go out there and play soft. If somebody ever came up, came up to me and say, hey, Link, just don't go as hard. You know, don't go as hard. That doesn't equate with me. What the hell are you talking about? I don't give a damn about your future draft choices.
Hey,
I'm talking about the here and now.
That don't resonate with Link in life.
True story.
That don't resonate with Link in life. Hey, Link. Hey, take it easy on me. Hey, Link.
Hell to the no.
He don't know no other speed but one. It's going fast, man. I'm trying to tell you.
Speak on it, brother.
Yeah, but both of you have mentioned it too in terms of like the idea of tanking. Oh, some of these guys are playing for jobs, and some of them won't even be here next year, so they don't really care about that. No. And also, just the way that Pete talks, he wants to win.
Pete don't care about that. Pete don't care about that. He don't care about, look, I mean, and look, this is just an opinion. Pete might not be back next year, right? So you think he cares about a draft pick? Pete's trying to win games, right? Everybody's job is on the line. So I think everybody's trying to win games, and only the guys upstairs really know the plan in place. We don't really have any idea. We're watching it all play out in real time.
Yeah, and look, when you have a coaching staff such as Pete Carroll and these guys, as he said, he's trying to put the best team out there, Q. It's anyone's guess that, what type of game plan is going to go in, because I've never seen it happen, but I can imagine. Coaches can coach to lose games. Yeah. You can. You could call the worst defense. You can call plays that won't work. You can call and you could take that heat if you think your job is secure or you think that you might be fired. But to ask players to do it, to go and ask in the locker room, don't play as hard. I was talking with EA about it when we were talking this past weekend, Eric Allen, and I was like, dude, how would you do it? It's like, I couldn't. As a cornerback, if somebody said, defensive back coach comes out to Eric Allen and says, hey, Eric, just take it easy. Don't play as hard. How about that?
Right.
You look at him like, what?
It's not going to happen.
You're also playing for pride at this point, because the Raiders have been in some games this season where they've got completely blown up. Yes. They got completely embarrassed on national television. I don't think they want to get embarrassed on a game where a lot of people are going to be having their eyes on because of Shedeur. Let's be serious here.
That's another thing, right? That's a good point.
They have to play with a little bit of pride. X factors for this game. You can pick offense, defense, both. Q, who do you have?
Oof. I think that the X factor could be special teams. I think I've gone to this a couple times this year, but the only reason I say that is because the Browns have struggled in special teams, right? They've given up some big kick returns, and I would love to see a big kick return by the Raiders, right? And we know that, the special teams unit has changed. We know that Tom McMahon's no longer the coordinator. It's Darius Swinton II now. He's in that spot as the interim. And if the Raiders could use this element, this phase of the game to their advantage, that could be their X factor there. So again, I'm gonna look at Raheem Mostert. Like, sitting in the press box at Allegiant Stadium on Monday, anytime Raheem Mostert got an opportunity to return the ball, I got Okay, let me sit up. Let me sit up in my chair and see what he does, because I feel like he has an opportunity to take one to the house. Dylan Lobby, I'm not quite as confident with. I know he's going to run hard, but it just seems like, he doesn't have that next gear that's going to be the finisher, where I think Raheem Mostert still has that. He showed a little bit early, and since I know Cleveland's special teams unit has been struggling, that could honestly end up being the X factor in this game.
For the next 7 games, I'm going to hold fast when I say this. I need to see improvement out of this offensive line. The X factor is the offensive line. When you're going up against the sack leader in the National Football League, and I can't remember, because I don't pay attention to the stats, the last time a defensive lineman won the sack award on a losing team, and has been such a big impact maker as Myles Garrett is. If you cannot contain him, there's absolutely no hope. So I'm going to go back to this offensive line, and I'm going to stay on this offensive line until I see improvement. Because last game I watched, and there were several mental errors, and I pointed them out to Q and shared them with him. So there are a few things that are going on, but for me, I got to see this offensive line.
Yeah, and coming up on the other side, Link and Q are going to be talking about a couple of players that need to do something on the field against the Browns on Sunday. And also, we'll be giving you our predictions for the game. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're watching or listening to the Raider Squad Show. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps getting exciting every game, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back, Raider Nation. Remember, if you like the content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media channels, and you'll see the description below the ways that you can connect with us. I'm guessing Link will be back in a couple of minutes. We'll give him a little bit of a break there. In the meantime, though, I do want to mention really quickly, we do appreciate you rocking with the show. And of course, if you've already hit that like and subscribe button, we do appreciate you. And remember, the Locked On Network is the #1 sports podcasting network. So thanks so much for rocking out with us and supporting the channel and the network grow. Q, we talked about do something a couple of times. A couple of players have to do something. Oh, look, Professor Kennedy is back right when you need him, because we're doing the do something segment. We actually got this from Link early on in one of our very early episodes. So it's a great segment. And remember, if you're in the chat, drop your players that you need to see do something. We'll go with you first, Q. Who do you need to see do something on the field on Sunday?
Malcolm Kuntz, right? I was pretty excited that they were able to re-sign him. It was so unfortunate that he didn't get to play in 2024 due to the ACL injury that he had before the season got started. So I thought, okay, I know it's not going to be a great start to the season because he's still coming back from the knee injury. And a lot of times it's between the ears when it comes to just gaining your confidence back. But look, man, we're talking about week 12 now. At this stage of the game, either you're going to go or you're not. And there's been moments where you see him, but unfortunately, the moments that we talk about when it involves Malcolm Kuntz, it's like it's a penalty, right? Like a unsportsmanlike penalty that he had on Monday night against the Cowboys. Like that's not when I want to hear Malcolm Kuntz's name called. I want to hear his name called because he's back there with Max Crosby harassing the quarterback. He's making plays. He's helping the offense get the ball back. Like that's what I want to see from Malcolm Kuntz, who this is a very big year for him. I mean, he's in a contract year. He got paid a pretty decent amount of money to come back on a one-year deal, $12 million. I want to see what he can do and how he's going to finish this thing off strong. To me, his whole career has been incomplete, right? 2023, he did really well in the second half of the season, and we all thought, I know I did, like, man, this dude's about to break out. He's really about to be that true Robin to Max Crosby's Batman, and then the injury happened, and he just hasn't really gotten over the hump. We know that the skill set is there. He just hasn't put it all together. I would love to see him start to put things together starting on Sunday against Cleveland.
Caillou Blue Kelly is mine. Do something.
Yeah.
Bounce back from last week. The fact is that when you put a young player out in the football field, they're going to take their lumps. They're going to make mistakes. He got benched before the game was over. Now it's time to show that you're worthy of being out there, worthy of being starter. You have an opportunity against an offense that struggles. You might have an opportunity to get some turnovers. You know, this defense thirsts for them. They don't have a lot of them, but you can thirst for them. Definitely be thirsty for it. Get out there and show me something, Caillou Blue Kelly.
Yeah, and I think for Caillou Blue Kelly, terrible fourth quarter because he was sitting on the bench. He got benched.
Yeah.
And Darian Porter got some burn, which I was happy about because young guys getting some more time on the field. But for me, I think it's just Jack Besh. I want to see Jack Besh do something. I've been waiting for Jack Besh to do something for like the last 3 games. And Tyler Lockett, once again, should not be wide receiver number 1. So hopefully Jack Besh gets a chance to really show out because I love his attitude as well and just kind of the energy that he brings to the team. So hopefully we can see the young guy make a big play on Sunday. Predictions. I know both of you hate this part, but we got to give our predictions for the game. Professor Kennedy, we're going to go with you first because you're laughing. So do the Raiders get it done on Sunday? What's your prediction?
16-13.
Yeah, it's going to be a rock fight.
Raiders. 16-13. Don't expect a lot of scoring here. 16-13.
No. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I do think that the Raiders win. Look, the one thing I know about the Cleveland Browns in the history of quarterbacks getting their first start, they're 0-17. Right. And I think the last time they had a quarterback that got a first start and won was back in like 95. So, I mean, since they returned to the NFL in 99, they're 0-17. So the history doesn't say that that's going in their favor. But with that being said, the Raiders have been on the wrong side of this story before. And so they have to do everything in their power. You want to talk about pride? Every single one of those dudes needs to not point the finger at somebody, but have the thumb at them and say, what can I do in this game to make sure that we don't leave here with an L? And we don't let that guy, Shedeur, who everyone, look, there's going to be so many people paying attention to this game that never had any plans of paying attention to this game because of the addition of Shedeur Sanders. This is 2-8 teams, right? You're talking about a team is going to leave this game on Sunday with 3 wins, and everybody's going to have their eyes on it. Colorado's going to be at Allegiant Stadium. The national media is all over it. They said on Wednesday, I should say, at practice, they had all of a sudden like 4 new media outlets there covering practice that hadn't been there all year after Shedeur got named the starting quarterback. So there's going to be a lot of storylines that are all going to be Shedeur related, and that's fine. If you're the Raiders, you say, yeah, let them do all the talking about that dude. We've got to go out there and play. I think they're going to get it done because they don't want to be embarrassed, but they've proven me wrong before, and I don't want them to prove me wrong again.
Okay, so you think the Raiders are going to get it done? Did you give a score cue?
I think they get the dub, but it's not. They ain't going to score 20 points, I don't think. Right? I mean, like I said, I think it's going to be a rock fight. So this could easily end up being like a 10-7, 14-10, 16-13, like Link said. Any of that, yeah, I'll take all of that. I think they're 4-point favorites in this game. Right, the Raiders are favored by 4. I think that's that's a lot of points for 2 teams that don't score very many points.
Sis, what's the over/under on the game?
You know what? I didn't check, but I would go with the under for this one. I think,
absolutely,
like you said, I do know the Browns are 4-point favorites, and I would bet on the Browns for the 4.
The Raiders are. The Raiders are the 4.
The Raiders are 4.
I thought. Oh no, sorry. The Raiders are 4-point favorites, but I would take the Browns to cover. I would take the Browns to cover in this game because I think that would be the best bet. But I actually think the Browns are going to win this game. I think it's going to be 17-10. And the Browns are going to get it done. I only say that because of the Cleveland defense. The Cleveland defense, that D-line is going to body the Raiders O-line. I'm telling you right now. And I'm actually afraid. I'm afraid for Geno. I think Geno's going to take a lot of hits where we might see him not come back in the game. I think it could be like a Denver situation where we saw him limping. He's not 100%. He's taken a lot of hits. And as much as, people... I understand the whole Geno thing. I've been hard on him all season, but it's really also a lot of the, I guess, frustration should also go on the O-line. For sure, because they're supposed to protect him. They're supposed to protect him, and they haven't protected him. The one thing I'll say about Geno is he's gotten a little bit older as well. And I don't think we also took that into
this
account.
Season too.
Yeah, we've seen him age. We've seen him age before our eyes, right?
No doubt.
And,
me age.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
I mean, look, it's difficult when you talk about a quarterback in the National Football League because they get all the glory when everything goes right. They get all the blame when everything goes wrong. And Geno has been at those press conferences, taking all the blame. It's on me. It's on me. It's on me. Look, I respect that as a quarterback and as a professional, but at the same point, when you look at the film, it's not all him.
No,
and it's
Yeah.
not fair to derive and put all the blame on him. And if I was in that, you know, that press room and asked him, like, look, your guys up front, how do you feel that you can, you know, do a better job with them or get them in a better place? And, you know, Gino took it all on his shoulders. Like, I got to execute better. There's times where Gino has to get out of plays. There are certain plays, and he's got to have the ability, because he's a veteran. He's not a rookie. He's got to have the ability and the confidence to change the play.
Right.
If you're running right and you see 6 guys over to the right of your side, I'm like, might want to go left or do something different. I haven't seen a lot of audibles out of this offense throughout this season. So what that tells me is that Chip Kelly's play it, call it, and run it. That type of coach. I understand that, but there's got to be a time for the betterment of your team. If you want to earn their trust, you're going to have to do something different. Oh, we can't run that sweep to the right. We're going to have to change this. Let's do something different. Call an audible, show confidence, execute it, get positive yards as an offensive lineman. Like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, let's go. We got a first down. Let's keep it moving. Those types of things build throughout games.
You know, and it's funny, Chantel, the way that you think that the Browns are going to, that Browns defensive line is going to wreck the Raiders offensive line. I think the Raiders could do that to the Browns as well, especially with their 2 starting tackles being banged up right now. And Shedeur is a guy, and look, I first and foremost, big Shedeur fan, right? I thought that the Raiders should have gone ahead and drafted him. Obviously they didn't. That's another story.
You're not the only one.
I think,
Same here.
I think that he could play. But the one flaw that he has is when he's under duress, what is he going to do? He'll turn his back to the line of scrimmage and he'll start doing all these little, you know, parasails or parallettes or whatever they are, whatever those, you know, the little twists. You got it. Yeah, I don't know.
Ballet moves. It's okay. You're not a ballet dancer. You're not supposed to know those things. It's okay.
You know what I mean? Either way, he'll start doing all that stuff and he'll lose 15 yards. He'll lose 18 yards. You know, that doesn't work in the NFL. That's been one of his biggest issues. So he's not going to be able to do that. I think that you're going to see him do that. That's why I think Max Crosby, look, obviously we want the Raiders to win, right? Yeah. The one thing I'm excited to watch is to see how 98 and 95 operate on Sunday. That's going to be a show in itself because these are 2 of the premier edge rushers in the league, dominant defensive players that wreck games, and they both are going to have an opportunity to eat on Sunday. And so really, I mean, whatever offensive line holds up better will probably win the game. And again, the Browns offensive line is compromised. So that's why I think the Shedeur is going to have a tough out as well.
And just a little added caveat to what Q's point is. Can you imagine the sort of media, the media brainstorm that will happen if Shedeur Sanders comes into the Legion, has a great game at the quarterback position, and the Raiders know that they passed on him
7 times.
That's another story, though. That's another storyline.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Can you imagine how it comes out if they, how the Raiders would look if that happens?
Yep.
I mean, regardless, I think if Shedeur has a good game, the Raiders are going to look bad. Yeah. And Q, you're right. I think the Raiders D-line could have a day against that O-line of the Browns. The only thing is, when in terms of defense for the Raiders, they're also like at the bottom of the league when it comes to, you know, pass defense and run defense. And it's like, this is not a good team on all facets, even special teams. There's always mistakes. And I think there's a chance for the Raiders to win this game. But at the same time, I think there's going to be a lot of energy on this Brown side. And it's going to give them some juice in this game, unfortunately. So the Raiders have to match that juice. The Raiders have to match that energy. And I think Pete will have them prepared because, listen, Pete's going to compete no matter what. No matter what, right? His name is Pete. He's going to compete. But here's the thing. I think there's more pressure on Chip Kelly than ever in this game. Is his play calling going to be dry? Are we going to know the plays that he's calling from our couch? Like, this can't happen in this game. And that's my biggest concern. And listen, if Shedeur has a day, I'm rooting for the kid. I'll say that much. I hope he has a decent game.
And I don't root for anyone to fail. Yeah, I don't root for anyone to fail. Yep.
Especially when he's taken so much heat from media and fans and everything like that. But Raider Nation, drop your comments and your questions for Q and Link in the chat. On the other side, they're going to be answering some of those questions and comments. So keep it locked here on the Locked On Network. You're listening or watching the Raider Squad Show. All right, welcome back, Raider Nation. If you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. We do appreciate you making the Locked On Network the #1 sports podcasting network. Also, the show, if you're making Locked On Raiders or the Squad Show your first listen of the day, we do appreciate you. All right, we got a couple of comments here that I actually highlighted. We'll go to Jake Stark first. and he was really respectful. I have a question for Professor Kennedy and Pastor Q. What has improved or changed for the better since preseason game 1 in Seattle? Ooh, has anything changed or improved, guys?
I'll go ahead and start. The tackling looked better early on, right? They weren't missed because they missed a ton of tackles in that preseason game number 1 against Seattle. Like, that's what stood out to me. Me and Lincoln watched that game together, sitting next to each other at the facility, and that's what stood out. And we really highlighted it a lot. Like, hey, there's a lot of missed tackles early in the season. The Raiders did a good job of cleaning that up. Unfortunately, later in the season, they're back to those ways. And that's actually going to be one of the big keys in this game is the missed tackles, because the Browns are going to want to help Shedeur Sanders a lot by running the ball. They have a dude that can do it, right? He's Quinshon Judkins is averaging 19 carries a game. So they're going to want to feed him. So the Raiders have to get back to what they did early, where stopping the run was what they were really good at. They're going to have to do that, make this Browns team one-dimensional, and then get that pass rush on the Shedeur and hopefully make him confused. But the missed tackles were better, but now they've regressed. So that's all I really had that has gotten better since then. And the fact that it's taken a couple steps back again is really troubling. So, I mean, that's a great point that he brings up about, what's gotten better. It's really not a whole lot of anything.
They're very slim. They're 2-8. There's not much that's better. The only thing I can say that is that stands out to me is that when the lights come on, Max Crosby seems to shine. He did in both Monday night games. I mean, and I know he does his job, throughout the season, but there's some times where you sit there and say, where's number 98? I don't see him. Is he out there playing? And of course there was a time where he got injured. You were worried about the future, the rest of the season. But the only positive that I've noticed is that Max Crosby balls out when the lights go on. Other than that, there hasn't really been much of improvement. That's why they're 2-8.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Anthony Mercado. Come on, Seattle South is a bust, a failure. Can AOC be worse? Yes, he could, but at this point, who cares?
Is that a
question? You
guys?
I mean, I think.
The question is, who cares?
I think he's saying, can it be any worse with AOC? Like, it's already bad. Do you guys believe that it can get worse with AOC under center?
I mean, when you're 2-8 and you're playing the way you're playing and you're averaging 15 points per game, it can't get much worse. But I do believe that even though he gets the ball out of his hands pretty quickly, I do believe with the way that the offensive line is playing that he'd be in big time trouble. Now, the one thing about it is Geno hasn't really used his legs to get out of trouble, where I thought that this is one of the things he was going to do this year is not be super there when trouble came. And it seems like he's not really too often willing to run and very hesitant to run. And there's times on Monday night where I'm sitting in the press box. I'm like, go. And then finally he goes, but it doesn't click immediately. And even some of his passes, it's like, okay, he's open in the flat. Okay, now I hit it. You know what I mean? It's like, it just seems like the timing is off with Geno and everything when it comes to dumping the ball off on the check down, when it comes to taking off and escaping the pocket. I think that Aiden might be able to get the ball out of his hands a little bit quicker, but I also think that he's even more of a target and sitting in that in the pocket with that offensive line in the stadium that it's in right now.
Let's keep in mind, what are the biggest drawbacks about AOC? My biggest drawback has always been that he stares down his receivers, right? Yep. And we've seen throughout this season the coverages that they played against Geno Smith, which has been up close, cover 2 style, press man style defenses that were going to take those early throws away. Aiden O'Connell could ill afford. You're not going to change his stripes because this is who he is right now. If Aiden O'Connell gets in there, he cannot afford to stare down receivers because it's going to be causing turnovers. Probably pick 6. The game's going to get out of hand quickly if he gets into the game. With that being said, I've noticed over the last game, especially, Geno made a conscious effort to get to the ball to the playmakers, and I understand that. But sometimes the playmakers weren't open. There were times where he was trying to force the ball to Brock Bowers. He wasn't open. You run the chance of getting it picked off. We saw the tip and the interception. And I know that Geno is conscious of the turnovers and doesn't want to turn over the ball. So he's more conscious about trying to do what I feel the presence of the media, the fan base. Hey, why Brock Bowers hasn't been targeted? Why did Ashton Jeanty haven't been targeted? Those types of things where you're talking about getting the ball out of your hands quickly. Sometimes he stares down those routes as well and throws them to some crowded situations. So, I mean, there's give and takes for both. Aiden O'Connell is not going to fare well, in my opinion, with this offensive line. So I think it's really an open shut case. Yeah.
And it's getting bad when the disrespect for Geno isn't even anything really mean. It's just people calling him Gina now instead of Gino. So
Wow.
it's turned into a funny thing, guys. But
Wow.
nonetheless, we're going to be back on Monday, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. I'm guessing Q and Link will be live from Q Studios.
Studio Q.
Studio
Yes,
Q.
exactly.
Q knows ball.
Make it a party, man.
I feel light every time I sit next to him. I mean, I feel like I learned something else. I learned so much more by just sitting next to him. I'm absorbing the air.
Unbelievable.
So in the Q studio, Q knows ball. I feel good.
Yeah, you need to get a sign or something that says Q knows ball or like Q Studios, something.
I'm
in the
telling you,
back.
it should be right
We've been
behind.
talking about it all year.
Where it says 3 million worldwide, right under it should say Q knows ball. Cover up all the flags. That's where it should say Q knows ball in big bold letters.
I'm done.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, so Raider Nation, join us on Monday. We'll be breaking down the game. We hope you enjoy the game on Sunday, and hopefully the Raiders get the win. Thanks so much for rocking out with us this morning. We'll be back on Monday.